My name is Jessica Holloway. I am 34 years old and I have lived in Atlanta, Georgia my whole life. I work in graphic design, and in the evenings I enjoy cooking new recipes and trying to keep my little herb garden from being devoured by the neighborhood squirrels. For the past 2 years, I really believed I had settled into the most beautiful chapter of my life. I had a boyfriend, Mitchell, who brought me flowers just because, sang off-key with me in the car, and whispered that he loved me every time we fell asleep. Everyone said we were a perfect match. We got a cozy apartment together in Midtown and filled it with silly little memories. He took me to look at engagement rings in March after telling our families we would probably be engaged by the end of the year. We argued sometimes, but nothing that felt serious. I thought both of us were happy, planning our future and leaning into all the cliches of love. But a week after that day at the jewelry store, things began to shift. One night, my phone buzzed with a text from his friend, a last-minute invitation to a game. Mitchell shrugged it off, said he did not feel like going out, kissed my forehead, and said he would stay home and work. When I came home, however, there was something strange in the air, as if the apartment no longer belonged to me. For the next few days, he started acting distant, glued to his phone and smiling at messages he hid from my view. He dismissed my suspicion, told me I was being paranoid, and insisted everything was fine. Once I stumbled on a receipt from a little jazz bar downtown with 2 cocktails on it, but he said he met a friend to de-stress. Things got worse when he spent a whole Saturday night out and never answered my texts. When he came home at 1 in the morning, he reeked of perfume and liquor. He swore he had not done anything wrong, angrily telling me my trust issues were going to ruin us. I started to believe him. Maybe I was the problem, maybe I was so scared of losing him that I was driving him away. I barely ate, I barely slept, I lost 13 pounds in a month. Even when I sobbed in bed, he would just pull on his best shirt to leave for a business meeting, giving me a pat on the shoulder before vanishing into the city's endless night. Everything fell apart on my birthday. As I sat poking uncertainly at a slice of cake, he cleared his throat and told me he was having a sexual affair with someone else. Just like that, not even a hint of apology, just the facts, delivered as if he was reading the news. My world shattered. We broke up, but he refused to leave our apartment. Our lives became a hideous mixture of cold avoidance, awkward encounters, and him getting ready to go out while I tried to heal in silence. One sleepless night, I cracked. I borrowed his iPad, heart racing, and dove into his texts for answers. What I found made my skin crawl. He was messaging at least 27 women. Some conversations were emotional, others were explicit. To a girl in her early 20s, he promised to run away with her and start a new life together, even though he had just met her 2 weeks ago. I recorded every number. I could not believe he was capable of this, but there it was, all documented in screen after screen of proof. 2 women I found through an app called T agreed to meet me at a coffee shop. They had gone through the same dizzying, soul-crushing experience with him. Together, we pieced together just how long this had been going on. Their messages from him went back to when he and I had first moved in together. It seemed cheating had always been part of his plan. The realization was a punch to the gut. I had just been a convenient address, a wallet, a stepping stone for his ambitions. Determined not to let this happen to anyone else, I started to gather everything. I wrote out the most detailed timeline I could. I watched who he messaged during the day, adding new names to my list. When I woke in darkness, I plotted out the message we would send once he moved out. I burned with a need for closure, for justice, for revenge. The day he finally packed his boxes and walked out, I sent the messages. 42 women in total heard from me that morning. No snark, just the truth, a careful explanation of who he was, how many others he was seeing, what lies he had told. One woman actually canceled her flight to Atlanta because she had planned to see him that very week. The responses surprised me. Most thanked me, shocked and grateful. Many had suspected, but not one had truly known the scale of his web of seduction and lies. One messaged me to say she had been about to meet up with him. After reading my warning, she blocked his number and asked to get coffee with me instead. I put everything I could onto the internet, videos, warnings, stories, to warn other women in Atlanta and beyond. I changed every caption to reflect what I discovered, hoping to reach even the women I had not been able to message. For a while I heard nothing from him, but it was clear he knew. I saw that he had untagged himself from our photos, erased his online traces, but he could not silence the growing chorus of women who now knew the truth. Still, he tried. One day, I got a letter from a lawyer about a case I did not recognize. When I dug deeper, I found out that my ex had requested a restraining order against me. In his statement, he claimed that he feared I would use a firearm against him, though I never made a threat and never owned a gun. The only firearm he mentioned belonged to an old roommate who had moved away. In reality, he had been the one who threatened to use it on himself during one of our worst arguments. Now he twisted the truth, weaponized the legal system in a last-ditch effort to punish me for exposing him, but I was ready. I gathered statements from therapists, screenshots from dozens of women, copies of conversations, receipts, notes from friends. I walked into court with all the evidence. On the other side, he sat with his lawyer, looking pale but trying to project confidence. When the judge asked him about the messages, the photos, and the threats, he started to stammer. I watched the confidence leak away from his face as the judge compared his claims to the mountain of truth I brought. The court sided with me. The restraining order was denied. The judge actually gave him a warning about abusing the legal process and told him in stern words that it was time to stop targeting women with lies. I walked out of the courthouse lighter as though the last piece of this nightmare melted away with the Georgia sun. After the verdict, my life began piecing itself together again. I kept in touch with the women he had targeted. We formed a strange sisterhood, meeting over coffee or sending each other funny memes on bad days. My herb garden flourished, the basil seemed greener, and I even adopted a little rescue cat. I deleted every trace of him from my life and started working on a new collection of digital art. But the best gift of all was this. Not only did I free myself from his lies, but I made sure he could never repeat the same game again, at least not without being exposed and remembered for what he had done. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if he ever thinks of what happened. Maybe he blames me, maybe he feels nothing. But for the first time, I know I did the right thing, not just for me, but for every woman who ever doubted herself for loving someone who could never love back. And as I look back now, I am grateful in a weird, twisted way. He thought he could break me, use me, and leave me behind. Instead, he gave me the chance to find my own strength and to make sure no one else had to go through what I did. In the end, that is the sweetest revenge. My life rebuilt, honest, and finally my own.